And welcome to Conservatives Talk.
And with the balloon incident this week, we're going to talk about the one that flew over the Kuku.
And we've also got another special segment where we're going to talk about issues going on here in America, and that's chicken feed scratch. And welcome back to Conservatives Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie. And well, you know what? Let's just be honest. This is a buck takeover show.
Yeah, we're going to get deep down some rabbit holes on this one.
Yeah. This one gets kind of intense, interesting, and pretty much fun looking at all the reasons why what's going on in America right now is actually happening.
Or are they really conspiracies?
Because these are there's not one that hasn't come true yet. So, we don't even really know where to go from here because this gets wild.
But with that in mind, we do like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like and the share button on every production that they see on all the platforms where we release our show on, as well as make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you will always stay up to date on all of our episodes. And we also encourage our viewers to make sure they're going to conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way to Jamie and I eventually, one of these days, taking over the world and proving that these conspiracies are actually real. So with that in mind, Jamie, would you like to give your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. Do not forget, continue to put pressure on them because this is a fading liberal agenda paper, and we have to make sure that they go bye-bye.
Yes. Go bye-bye.
Bye.
And with that, we do like to say a quick reminder or a quick thank you to our affiliates, our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. Make sure you're checking them out. They are a local grassroots compilation of newscasters that share on-the-ground productions of what's going on in their areas. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. So Veterans for America First is a veteran organized group that works to fight to push the America First agenda. And they do so through their platform, and that being Vet Voice. So Vet Voice is the premier America First platform where you will only find those content producers that want the America First policies and agenda pushed. And they do that on their social media platforms. So make sure you're checking out every major social media platform for Vet Voice. So, Jamie, with that in mind, let's jump right into our first one. And and I got to say, I'm a little proud of this one because, you got to.
Yeah, Justin had to show me the movie to where this makes sense. But
he's never seen Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, never seen it. But this definitely makes sense. And I feel like the guy in Mice and Men could be Joe Biden's cousin. Especially with that look on his face.
The exact same look.
Exact same look.
It's uncanny. and I'm talking about the newest version of it. So, but yeah, and I'm pretty sure even the oldest version because they still have that look.
So yeah, let's dive into it.
What happened with this? When was it? We woke up Thursday to news reports that there was a Chinese balloon that had made its way into American airspace on Thursday. And everyone was in an uproar about it. Originally, it was that this was a Chinese weather balloon. Come to find out that this was actually a Chinese spy effort or spy balloon.
Yeah, because you could see the solar panels at the bottom of it, and you could tell like where it was, receiving messages, taking images. You really couldn't tell that, but it just looked like something that takes images from how we do it, right? We understood the technology once we saw what it looked like. It looked like a mini satellite that was at the bottom of a balloon.
And the funny thing about it is it wasn't even at the appropriate level for what actual weather balloons are supposed to be at. It was too low.
Which I have a conspiracy on that, right? Because
there are multiple.
I think they put it at that level so they could fly to a certain degree under the radar and look similar like a hot air balloon, to where the average person would not pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. They wanted to see how far into the coast they could get without anyone going, "The heck is that?"
And my conspiracy theory on that is that includes the United States government, because we didn't find out about it until Thursday when a regular person noticed it, started taking pictures, and raised the alarm about it. We can't even say, or nobody has even admitted, that the federal government knew that it was in our airspace in Alaska, because this thing started in China, flew over Russia, went up to Alaska, flew down through Canada, and then came in to United States airspace in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we didn't even realize that it had entered our airspace until an average person took a picture of it and said, hey, what is this?
It was Pearl Harbor. I mean, like that was the thing about Pearl Harbor, was they flew all the planes underneath the radar to where they came in undetected. And if history has taught us anything, maybe we should find a way to like lower the levels of what we view as, you know, things that need to have some kind of knowledge to the FAA, like, you know.
Yeah. The fact that it could potentially have made it this far without it being destroyed as soon as it entered into U.S. airspace in or outside of Alaska, because the fact that they allowed it to come through Alaska into the mainland United States.
There's no way.
I mean, but yet they weren't willing to destroy it until it was over a body of water on the other side of the continent. That kind of tells me that they didn't even know it was there in Alaska.
Or that they knew, right? Because here's the other part of it. Here's the other side of the coin, right? Or they knew, and the pressure from the American people to take it down was more than enough to say, okay, this is enough's enough. You know, it's time to take it down.
And we're taking a little bit too much heat. We got to do something about it. They know about it now.
Yep.
They know that we know.
Yep. Because that's the other thing, right? I watch a channel called the Science Channel, and it's one of my favorite things to watch when I get ready.
Is this a TikTok or a?
No, it's actual. Okay. It's an actual channel.
Okay, so
like kind of like
I know what channel you're talking about now. I just didn't know if this was a TikTok or an Instagram post, because you share a lot of these things.
Yeah, I know. It's the Science Channel is what Discovery used to be before it became basic cable.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that we talk about with the Science Channel, or one thing they show on the Science Channel, what in the earth is this, or engineering features, and it talks about these massive structures and basically how the CIA or these other 3-letter agencies will send out these little spy planes or do it from satellite images and see it, and then they'll send people out there to investigate because we don't know what it is, right? We have all of that. There is no way we did not know what that was for that length of time.
I don't know.
No way.
I don't know.
I think it was allowed.
Well,
which is even scarier.
Well, I don't know. I would say us not knowing would be the scariest part, because think of it this way.
That's true.
Imagine if we were... And going, when you said Pearl Harbor, this immediately triggered this thought. Imagine if this was not really a weather balloon. Imagine if this was something that was created to look like a weather balloon that came over mainland United States and then detonated a nuclear device at that altitude.
Oh, yeah.
With an EMP.
Because see, here's the other thing. People forget that, like,
that wipes out United States.
Hiroshima and Big Boy was not. It didn't blow up when it hit the ground. It was technically detonated from 1,500 feet in the air, and then all of that was the catastrophic for the rest of the nuke, right? So, from where that hot air balloon was, that's a good thought, because basically from where that balloon was, that's the distance to where if something like a bomb was placed in there, it could have detonated, or even if it was, you know, some form of chemical warfare, like it could have exploded and we never would have come up. It would have been under the radar. They would have been able to fly it in. They would have been able to release whatever they wanted to. And if we didn't know that it was there, we have a problem.
Oh yeah.
because it could destroy the whole country.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, my biggest fear with that is the fallout or anything like that from a nuclear device. It would be the EMP that came with that.
Yeah,
because that would decimate the entire Western Hemisphere.
Without a doubt.
Take the entire Eastern or Western Hemisphere back to the Stone Age.
Yep.
And
truly, hills have eyes. Like what? Anything that was caught into it, shadows are still burnt onto buildings.
Oh, well, I'm talking about taking out the entire electrical grid.
I'm talking about that, and the fact of like what it would have done to the atmosphere, all the way down to like, you know what I mean, the decimation factor, the radiation factor, the psychological factor from the survivors, like no recovery.
Well, at that point, in my mind, at that height and the experience that I have in that area, I was, with a nuclear, biological, and chemical recon and decon company battalion, the Army. At that height and at that distance, the fallout would have been widespread, but it would have been very diluted. But my biggest fear with that one would be the EMP burst that would account from that, because with the way our power grid, as you know, is set up, everything is above ground.
Mm-hmm.
So when that EMP came across, there would be no shielding on anything that we have. Every power station, every tech center, well, every credit reporting center would have been completely erased. Nothing would have been able to fix it. So we would have literally been going back to horse and buggies for a very long time. And then at that point, you have the largest standing military in the world coming in, China.
Because without a power grid, there's no way we can communicate.
Can't communicate, can't detect them, can't even run any of our warfighting capabilities. Because outside of the soldier on the ground, everything else is run electronically.
I couldn't even drive.
I couldn't even drive. So all of our vehicles run on chips.
Yep. Yep. Crazy.
Yeah, that's well, that to me is the biggest and scariest part of that. But the fact that it was allowed to continue to go across, not only was it in our airspace, but the route that it took through our airspace took it very close to some of our nation's most sensitive sites, like our missile silos with our nuclear capabilities. Apparently, from my understanding, is it hovered and changed course over top of one of those sites. So it was almost as if, hey, we know they're there. We just want to let you know we know they're there. We could have done something. We just want you to let you know we know where your missiles are, and then continue this way out.
Which means that this was controlled the entire time, because they
changed courses.
Yeah, because they didn't shoot it down until they got to Myrtle Beach, which is what made it even more interesting. Because which why I felt like they felt the pressure on it, right? Because it was on TV when they shot it down,
and the way that they shot it down is also significant, because it wasn't just they shot and destroyed the balloon and it floated down. They blew the thing up. So now it was going to be incredibly difficult for us to recover anything that they had in that satellite. So it'll be incredibly difficult for us to know if they recorded anything, or even if to know it was sending anything.
That's how I know that they sent it, right? Or, you know what? Like, the federal government does this all the time, okay? It could have been ours.
Oh no, China admitted to it.
Well, of course China admitted to it, right? That's like when people were like, "Oh yeah, well George Bush pulled off 9/11," right? Okay, China admitted to it, but I don't think that there's no way that like this was a cooperative effort. For what reason, what purpose? I don't know. It goes back to other things that I've talked about on this show, like the sonic boom testing that the U.S. military did on the coast. We would drop sonic bombs in the ocean. Only reason anyone knew about it is because large wildlife in the ocean were washing up on shores. And eventually after decades, it was like, okay, look, we were testing sonic bombs, and it was blowing the eardrums out of marine life, and they were washing up on shore. Similar situation. We may not know why, or the different things that people were trying to classify as UFOs years ago ended up being just test crafts for new technology for aircraft carriers, things like that. And people were like, what are that? Oh, well, it's either those are alien spaceships flying in formation, or these are unidentified military vehicles flying in formation. And it ended up being unidentified military vehicles. So things like that. Like, I don't put too many things past the federal government when they want to test something, or who they will get to take the blame for it, so that they don't have to admit that they've been spying on us in new obscene ways.
It's a very interesting theory, that one. I hadn't considered that one. Then that would lead to the next question: is what is China going to get for taking the blame for it?
This is true. I think, but see, here's the other thing too. The Biden-China relationship is so deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just like, you know what I mean? Hunter probably gave a crack rock for that. Like, you know, like you know what I mean? Like,
well, they sent it to him and allowed him to be applied.
He was like, hey, I need a favor. I got your sack for free. Like,
I mean, so another thing about it is, when I first heard about this, my first thought is, it'll never make it out of Montana, because some guy is going to walk out there with a hunting rifle and blast this thing out of the sky. This thing was 60,000 feet above sea level. And it was the size of, what was they said? Between, I think it was like 2 school buses. So, I mean, this thing was massive. We're talking like almost 60 feet the size of the balloon, and 60,000 feet in the air. There's nothing here that we could, I mean.
Not everyday citizen. Nope. We could have dropped that.
It would have to have taken a military grade something to be able to hit it.
That's why I just can't believe, like, I mean, we prep for people to go in to try to break into Air Force One because of a Facebook group. Like, there's no way they did not hear about this and allow it to happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they knew. There's no way they didn't know.
Maybe they thought it was just a scientific group here in the United States that was doing it, and they didn't know it was Chinese.
But everybody said, okay, sure.
I'm trying to come up. I'm trying to come up with theories.
Yeah, and just ways for them to, like, try to have them defend themselves. Because JP, whatever her name is going to skate around it. You're never going to get a straight answer out of the White House, and then it's going to be classified documents hidden in the Biden garage until 10 years when they can declassify the whole thing,
if they ever declassify it.
Yeah. We know it's not aliens because none of that can be classified anymore. All thanks to Trump, all forms, knowledge, or communications about aliens has been declassified
that we know about.
Well, that's why they changed the name to some of them. So they're not UFOs. Anything that's listed as a UFO previously is declassified. Everything that needed to be everything that fell into that they didn't want us to know was reclassified as something else, and they just changed the name from a UFO.
Yep. we warned you it was going to get a little deep on this.
I mean, like,
a couple of rabbit holes are jumping.
I do this for fun. This is when you see me in a board meeting and I'm sitting here looking on my phone, it's usually a new conspiracy theory.
He's looking at the most recent contact with the lizard people.
Basically, I carry my ring, so we got to stay in line.
You had that pain in the back of your neck again. Is that what it was?
Chip malfunction.
Sent those signals out.
I can't wait to get my new chip anyway, because then I can, like, I'm totally kidding. People take me serious sometimes. Like, I've heard people who have, like, watched the show, like, take some of the things that I say, like, when it comes to that, like, way too serious, y'all. Like, these are just little jokey jokes, okay?
Like you being homeless.
Or the fact that I'm down for chips. I'm not down for chips. I'm only down to chip my drunk friend who will get drunk and we can't find him anywhere.
You mean JP?
No, not that one, because he gets lost on purpose. But also, and to make fun of the fact that, so y'all know, since we're kind of in this realm right now, there are people who are pushing for the implementation of RFID chips in humans, right? And I'm a social scientist, so I like studying people and how they move in groups and like the way that they try to influence the masses. Okay, that's literally what my degree is in. I'm in multiple societies for them, and what I found interesting is they have this one person who's popped up who got this blue check, which means that someone has vouched for their influence on TikTok, called Chip Girl. Okay. And what Chip Girl does is Chip Girl lives in this multi-million dollar mansion. She's apparently a billionaire, her and her husband. They have all these fancy cars, but the only way to access everything inside of their house is their RFID chip inside of their hand. So to open their door, they have to do this. To open the nightstand, they have to do this. Refrigerator, go in the garage. And my whole point in this is this is that next layer of like mass media subliminal manipulation that they're trying to push. So I've gotten everyone in for digital currency, using trip cards. Then, as I've explained beforehand, one of my biggest fears that Joe Biden or whoever the administration is in 2030s is going to do is they're going to take our cash away from us, take our precious metal, force us to use a certain form of a currency, and then they're going to chip us. And they're using this to slowly get us conditioned to it, because then eventually they'll just be able to lock you out of your house, let alone your bank account and everything else.
We've already seen that in Canada.
In Canada. And then, because then you mix the two, right? Canada has proven that they can lock you out. You have companies that are operating in Europe that won't let you go to a vending machine or purchase food at just local stands if you're not chipped. And then China has already proved that, hey, if we do not believe that your social credit and loyalty to the government is good, then we can reduce your buying power or give you more because of how loyal you are to your government.
Well, I mean, you're also seeing that here in the United States already, with banks not giving out loans to specific companies if they don't meet their ESG.
Because they couldn't push it on the American people in America, so they pushed it on companies. So now you can see the model. It's no different than how, I'm an avid supporter of certain aspects of cryptocurrency, not all of them. And that's how that's how cryptocurrency took off, is, because there's nothing that goes on in society that takes a trend that's not allowed or explored because powerful people allow it to. That's just reality. Okay. Even when everyone was coming out against cryptocurrency here in America, the rest of the world was still thriving heavily on its usage. And everyone had their own test market based upon what central bank you were in for its region. Okay. Europe was the EU, and the European Union was the European Union central banking system was the first one to test having a governmental ran central, like, cryptocurrency. Okay. From merchant to consumer, or consumer to merchant, that transaction was first handled in China and Japan. In Israel, they tested what if each city had one and used it kind of like gift credits. So people were able to take their Bitcoin and go to Tel Aviv and say, I want to exchange this amount of Bitcoin for, a Tel Aviv coin, or go to Jerusalem and do the same, so that you had exchangeable currency inside of your local town. So what it'd be like if each town or each country had its own, and how do you handle the exchange rate? So they had test markets from a financial standpoint before they were like, okay, now let's drive the price down so that when we redistribute it, only those who maintained a certain amount of it, can actually be wealthy again in the system. I get scared. Sometimes I probably do need to lay off the internet.
Well, we all
finish my bomb shelter.
We all do on both accounts.
Yep.
But with that in mind, we do like to take a moment to remind reviewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on all the productions that they see on any of the platforms we do release our production on. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button, as well as going to our website and hitting that sponsor tab at conservativestalk.org and helping Jamie and I to eventually be able to take over the world and stop this digital trend from taking over and ruining everybody's lives.
No more RFID trips. It's the true mark of the beast.
Yeah. So we spoke a little bit about, or not really, kind of gave the introduction of a special topic being chicken feed scratch. So we, as Americans know, we are experiencing a massive surge in pricing of eggs. So Jamie, as he just explained, spends a good bit of time on looking up a lot of this stuff. So he ran across this video, and we're going to play it real fast. And this right here actually gives some explanation behind one of the reasons why you're seeing such a massive surge in pricing for eggs.
So a young woman on TikTok began investigating this. She thought it was very strange, right? She lives in the country. She has chickens, and her hens were not laying eggs. How bizarre. This has never happened before. She started talking to people locally, and it's the same thing. They're saying, yeah, no, they're not laying eggs. And this started around September. And so she starts to do a little bit of investigation, and she starts looking at the feed. Okay, what are we all feeding our chickens? And apparently there's not very many distributors of chicken feed. And she determines that there's two main ones. And actually she discovers that it's just one main one, and it's Purina. Purina is the main owner of the chicken feed that they are all feeding. She goes down and she decides to switch up the feed. She talks to somebody locally who switches the feed, and immediately the chicken begins to start laying eggs again after they were no longer given Purina feed, and were instead given some local chicken feed. Listen to this woman in her own words, because the conspiracy gets even darker from there.
Essentially, right now, nobody's chickens are laying, and there's a big conspiracy going on about it being a chicken feed issue. So I dug into the chicken feed issue, come to find out Producer's Pride and Do More Feed from Tractor Supply are both manufactured by Purina, which is owned by Lands of Lakes, which is in a joint venture with the largest egg producer in the United States. I'm sure you're asking yourself, how does this all tie together, right? How does this all tie together? Well, in case it's not just staring you straight in the face, the largest producer of eggs in the United States is in a joint venture with Purina, essentially.
So, yeah, that in of itself is terrifying.
So, and here's the other kind of crazy thing about it is this makes sense, because this goes back to the entire thing of, looking at, there's only about 12 companies that produce the majority of food for us and livestock. This is another big corporate takeover in a sense. And when people wanted to start producing their own food and started gardening and wanted to get their own chickens, why all of a sudden, once everybody starts trying to get chickens, while none of the chickens are, laying eggs anymore, or laying a minimum of 1 to 2 eggs a month, and no one understood why. And then all of a sudden, like the timing on all this, right? Over the course of the last year and a half, when you really dabble into it, people went from saying, you know what, we don't just want to produce our own vegetables. We want to get chickens and produce our own food, right? Have our own chickens, get our own eggs. During that time frame, if that boom started happening, these chickens stopped laying eggs. People were thinking maybe, maybe it's the chickens that it's a generational thing, right? We need to weed out the chickens. We need to get more chickens, that kind of thing. So people started buying more chickens thinking that this would help. Then all of a sudden, they're not laying eggs. Chicken prices skyrocket. And so do egg prices. Well, almost like tenfold. Because now you're paying close to $8 to $10 for a dozen eggs. Whereas, about 3 years ago, you're paying $2 or so. then you find out that the part of the reason is because they put something in the feed. And if you know anything about agriculture, like that's how you know how to regulate it. You know how to manipulate to produce more, or how many hormones to add to make the beef thicker, or variations, because agriculture is not just seed in the ground. It's the entire science behind producing the proper feed, soil, and nutrients and everything. And I'm speaking to the choir here, but you know what I mean? And then to see this is, if you understand anything about agriculture, like, this freaks you out because you know it's true.
So you know what the official response to this is?
No.
So the official response from Purina, or not from Purina, but from the corporate entities that do that produce eggs, is that there is a massive wave of avian flu that's coming through the United States, which is true. And it is decimating the chicken populations. So there is a supply and demand issue right now.
Oh,
that's the reason why
the
the eggs are so high, as well as the cost of poultry.
But
because if there was and I'm saying the reason why I'm bringing this up is not because I believe them. I'm bringing this up because there is a science or a relative correlation between the two. If the price of eggs went up and the price of poultry stayed the same, that would be a significant issue that would be
valid.
raised.
That's valid.
But both the price of poultry and the price of eggs have gone up. So there is a supply and demand issue. However, there is also the issue of these poultry producers are having such a issue with filling labor that they're having to pay higher prices, higher wages, everything along that line. So that would also cause the price of poultry to go up. And I wonder if there is if the rise in the cost is correlating with each other.
Well, and it should, right? Because, all right, I'm gonna take my conspiracy hat off for a second, and it would take a minute for market prices to catch up to the labor costs and the raw material costs that go into it. So the timing of all this still matches. Okay. The perspective on this that messes with the human psyche, because here's the other thing. Okay. Again, taking my hat off. They have been doing this for years, which is why we're just catching on to it, because now people they're exploring it. But this has been the process for years. Anyone who is, look, if you've been around chicken houses, chicken farms, everything, you knew that one, it's awful, but two, that a lot of your local places, especially in North Georgia, have been bought up by Pilgrims, Tyson Food, and a few others, and a lot of Chick-fil-A, a lot of these places have been consolidating for the last couple of decades. So there's when we talk about local chicken farmers, there's not really one, right? Like you like, it's still the same farm. You know what I mean? Jordan still may run it, but like Jordan just now has chickens for Chick-fil-A or Pilgrims instead of, his own personal farm.
And the thing that the young lady in this video was talking about, I believe in the interview that she gave with Tucker on Tucker Carlson, I think she said she had somewhere around about 60 laying hens. So that's not a corporate farm raising entity. That's for that she would lay eggs for herself and to sell at farmers markets.
At max profit there. At max her neighbors on Saturdays.
Yes. So her having this issue is really significant, because that would show that these corporate industry entities are coming after the local producers that are cutting into a very small portion of their overall profit. Because let's be honest, not a lot of people are going to raise chickens. I mean, there's zoning issues that go into this. You can't raise chickens.
And if there's
a massive issue going on just up the road from us in Walker County over this issue.
Walker County's having it right now. Catoosa County had it a couple months ago or so. Floyd County had it a couple months ago. But that's part of it, right? Is because I got to use it because I hadn't used it in a while, right? The South Park reference of where when you're used to one person being the producer, they may not immediately feel it. But if I have 10 people who are taking 2% of my profit margin away, eventually I'm going to feel it. The more people who start to produce it. So that's why, I'll lean into this one and be like, oh, they did this as a conspiracy and they did this intentionally because, more and more people are wanting to raise their own chickens. And then they're hitting the farmer's market to where, I can go on Saturdays and get, 3 dozen eggs for half the price of what I get for 2 at the grocery store. And then, then they really feel it because now not only have I like cut them out at a lower profit margin, but now I've reduced what I would eat. I've reduced even my gap that I would go to them for.
Yep. Well, Jamie and I will be fine on this issue because we have a direct supplier. So
yeah,
just to let you other folks know, Jamie and I will be good. We're not in any trouble about this.
Mm-mm.
So
no, I swear. Like, once again, the only thing that's not done yet is the bomb shelter. I have the food, the weapons, the location, the barrier. I just got to finish digging underground.
Giving away too much info, man.
I didn't say where it was.
It doesn't matter.
It's not even in my name.
The fact that you still have all the supplies for it,
or a company that I run, where I'm not the listed registered agent of the company that owns the land that where everything's located. Go look.
There you go, giving away too much information. Let them know you should keep them thinking that it's you on there, so that way they won't look for anything that's not you.
Go look.
Oh man. But with the inevitable well, as everything inevitably does in life, it all concludes, and so is the show. The conspiracy corner is now closing. Buck has
that's Buck shutting the door.
Yeah, Buck's ran out of things. He's going back to his hole, to where he's going to continue to try and drum up as much information as possible, searching the ever-increasing expansions of the info world.
Have you ever seen that show, Mr. Robot?
I think so.
It used to be on USA, where basically like you had the evil corporation, which basically represented Google, and like how they had everyone's information, and then from the inside out, they wanted to bullet. Anyway, I just see that next. Like there's going to be a Anon group who goes rogue, and like they're like, we're going to take out all the credit agencies and give everyone new credit. Anyway, those are the random things that run through my mind subliminally through Buck.
And unsubliminally sends messages constantly. So with that in mind, we want to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that they run across any platforms that we release our show out on, as well as make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single episode. Also, we encourage our viewers to make sure they're going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner to help us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way to allowing Jamie and I to eventually be able to take over this world and stop all of this craziness, or start some of our own, whichever way you want to look at it. That's basically
it. We stop also, they're crazy to begin ours.
Yes, it will. Depends on your definition of crazy.
I dabble.
To some, sane. We also want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. That's always a mouthful. Also to Veterans for America First and their media production arm of Vet Voice. So with that in mind, Jamie, any final thoughts?
Yeah, again, I want to remind everyone that municipal elections are coming up. If you are in Floyd County and you would like to run for office for the Rome City Commission, please contact me and I will make sure that we do everything that we can to help you. Also, want to remind everyone that February the 11th is our mass precinct meeting in Floyd County for the Republican Party. Please come out and join, as well as March 11th is our countywide meeting. You got to have an invitation to come to the county meeting, so please make sure that you make it on February 11th. We'll be down here at the Etowah Senior Center. Doors open at 9. We have to be locked by 10 o'clock, so make sure you get there early.
And you do not have to be a member of the party to attend this.
You do not have to be a member of the party to attend mass precinct. You have to be a member of the party to attend county, as well as if you want to be a delegate, please come to February 11th. We'll explain everything.
Yes.
That's the best way to do it. February 11th, you don't need to be a member of the party. Please join us, and we look forward to seeing everyone.
if you have questions and you want more information, you're required to come February 11th to find out how you can participate going forward.
Also, yeah,
Just
that's the best way to do it.
We'll put it out and tell them that they have to come.
Yep.
So with that in mind, this is Conservatives Talk.